Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you? Then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a Ko-Fi, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using stock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Refracted Curvature, Neil, Click OK, Adam, Price, and a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server, so welcome one and all. Okay, well that wasn't exactly the start I was hoping for. Good to have you all. Let's do a bit of housekeeping. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
I would hope any response given would not use linear feet.
Why not?
Well, linear feet is a straight line, and that's a distance with respect to a plane of reference.
Earth is measured flat with feet, with meters, with kilometers, with miles, with hectares. Earth is measured flat with these linear distance measurements. These linear areas with respect to a plane of reference describing the Earth being measured. Earth is measured flat for everyone, always, without exception. This is not just limited to linear distances horizontally, this is also applicable to height. Any height, that's altitude, will always and without exception be described with respect to a flat Earth. Height can only be a measurement of a flat Earth. Any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
This object is not a line.
Or, so to put it another way, elevation angle measurements are a flat Earth prerequisite also. Chocolate.
Yeah,
Let's,
definitely. And
It's
even in their little programs and their systems, when they put it in and try to measure a curve, it literally tells them in this way, this object is not a line.
but when we
Access denied.
measure altitude angles, they have a definition. I've got about 20 of them. I'll just read off one definition of an altitude angle, sometimes referred to as, quote, solar elevation angle. Describes how high the sun appears in the sky. The angle is measured between an imaginary line between the observer and the sun and the horizontal plane the observer is standing on. End quote. Sustainable by design. That is the definition of an altitude angle. I'll just read the bit that's being measured again. Quote, the angle is measured between an imaginary line between the observer and the sun and the horizontal plane the observer is standing on. So to measure a elevation angle, it is a prerequisite, part of the bleeding definition, that you'll be standing on a horizontal plane in order to measure it, as it is quite literally part of that angle measurement. An angle, by definition, is two straight lines. In this instance, one of those straight lines is, quote, the horizontal plane the observer is standing on. Now, with that in mind, we've got a new flat earther. His name is SciManDan. He measures Earth as a horizontal plane and points out the differences people would have with those flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle measurements when responding to this CC guy.
Really were moving in a circle 3,000 miles above us, everyone on Earth would see it at vastly different angles. And
So those vastly different angles we would see are a flat Earth measurement. Dan understands that we will be measuring elevation angles. He mentions TFE. Now, bearing in mind that Dan is here in this video responding to the lowest hanging of all fruit that there is available to him, and is mentioning the final experiment, you'd think he might have noticed that somebody got a mention down, quote, down, with respect to a plane, in Antarctica, south, a flat Earth direction. And that was me. My name was screamed into the snow when describing measurement of, guess what? Angles. Toon measured angles too, Dan. And upon having them pointed out to him for, I kid you not, the 100th time in Antarctica, he hung the phone upon me and said, I quote, he tried to deflect with measurements, end quote, Michael Toon. Now, Dan here's talking about the exact same measurements that I told Toon he measured Earth flat with. That would be elevation angle measurements of the sun. The same angles Dan's referring to here. Now, maybe Dan was just too stupid, having been dropped on his frickin' head by his mother, to notice that the measurements being made in Antarctica were elevation angles as described by him here. And that as a consequence of those measurements that, quote, he tried to deflect with, end quote, McToon, there is a flat Earth prerequisite being utilised by all concerned. Not just Dan and Toon. So we'll make this number one for Dan. Toon got up to 100. I wonder how many we'll get up to with Dan. But we'll call the unresponded message time-stamped with Dan's, quote, different angles being completely ignored by Dan. We'll call this number one. Yo, Dan, you are measuring Earth flat. May I define those angles? End quote you. That we'll be measuring. The altitude angle, sometimes referred to as solar elevation angle, describes how high the sun appears in the sky. The angle is measured between an imaginary line between the observer and the sun and the horizontal plane the observer is standing on. End quote. Sustainable by design. Altitude angle, Dan. The same angle you're talking about. That's one. Toon got to 100. Let's see how far Dan gets in this tete-a-tete with Nathan Oakley, who definitely isn't this low-hanging fruit that Dan likes to respond to. I'm the one right up in your face telling you and everybody else, Dan, measure Earth flat, in this case with elevation angles. So it is my greatest of pleasure to invite you all to Dan to let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, just to let you know you measure Earth flat, Dan, with elevation angles as defined by Nathan Oakley. There's only one type of angle, Dan. It definitely doesn't curve. They're straight lines meeting at a vertex, my friend. And if we're describing the elevation angle of anything ever, it requires a horizontal plane for you to be standing on. And while I appreciate I've gone through this same point multiple times, we'll call this one. Yeah? The same one I'd accounted for Toon. He got to 100. Let me know in the comments how many times you think I'll have to tell SciManDan. He measures Earth flat with these, quote, different angles. Right, Dan? Let him know. There's a link to Dan's video. Flat Earther rants about things he doesn't understand. Do you understand what an elevation angle is, Dan? Because I'm going to be the one educating you for as many times as it takes until you, like Toon, scream my name into the Antarctic snow. Quote, he tried to deflect with measurements. What's going to be your excuse, Dan? Am I deflecting here when I define the angles you use, Dan? Am I deflecting? Is Toon right? Maybe I'm just a really big fan of SciManDan, because that was your last response to your stuttery, you and your reference frames have been ruined. That is a verbatim quote from stuttery SciManDan. No, I'm not a big fan of Dan. I'm a big fan of elevation angle measurements, though. So's Toon. Yeah? He loved hearing about them so much he had to hear them 100 times. Yeah, the ones he measured, that is. He heard about them 100 times, Dan. You've heard about them once. We'll be counting them off from here on forward. Oh, just by the way, Dan, you asked Jaren whether or not you get under our skin. 1. Earth's measured flat with elevation angles. Maybe ask me how much you get under my skin, son. That'd be none. Meanwhile, you prove Earth's flat, Dan, with your elevation angle measurements that would be so different on a flat Earth. They'd have to be on a flat Earth, Dan, and we all use them. They're defined as requiring a horizontal plane to be standing on. Just so you know, you're not unique. Everybody measures Earth flat always. It's simultaneous the reason that Toon and his charity channel he got from Conspiracy Cats was talking about those measurements I deflected with. And it's also the reason that Conspiracy Cat's the one who gave up that channel to McToon, is also talking about me currently, mentioning the facts of the measurements that I detailed to Tiny Tim. The idiocracy representative that we have here on our flat plane that we dwell atop. Someone representing adults by talking like a small child. Cats are fit to defend this garbage. This idiocracy that he obviously feels the need to cuck to. But meanwhile, Katz is also talking about me and playing out clips of me talking about Earth being measured flat. And then lo and behold, calling me angry. Not addressing the flat Earth measurements that Dan here's using. Still just one, Dan. We'll just count this as one. No worries. We'll count them off. But yeah, Toon and Dan measure Earth flat. And Katz is bringing it up in his video. Doesn't seem to be addressing it. Doesn't also seem to be addressing the gas pressure without a container problem that he said he'd come back to when talking about it with Tommy the boxer. Doesn't seem to be a necessity to go back to that old ground, eh, Katz? Just bring it up by playing it with my words and then not addressing it when I detail it in your own video. A bit like Dan here, who seems to think that gas go down, go boom boom, 9.8 meters per second as the gas comes out of the ground and goes up.
First place.
New year, new you.
No shit, this is the
Ready
sixth
to get
ad.
on the road faster in 2025.
So gravity is holding on to nothing, clouds. So they're not flying off into space, right? And where they
I don't know who this guy is, but there is no space. It's a second law of thermodynamics violation. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill the space. Just ask cats. Or maybe you'll come back to it later.
should. I don't understand why they're not.
They're not, because there isn't a fucking sky vacuum above our head. It's a violation of natural law. But it seems like this grey-haired old tosser's just throwing them up for Dan to bat out the park.
Why isn't it? Oh, it's because...
Why isn't it dispersing into Narnia? Why doesn't all the gas get sucked through the wardrobe?
the pressure.
Pressure? No, gas forming pressure would require it to press on something.
That's a cool idea. You're
No, that's how gas presses.
right. You're absolutely right. It is pressure.
Yes, that's right, it is. Yeah, not without containment.
I'm going to agree with you 100%.
I think conspiracy
Even though-
cats already answered this question years ago.
What, he said something...
What was the quote? Without the container, there can be no pressure. End quote. Conspiracy cats.
I'm
You
not
solved this
scientists
problem
know
a long time ago.
what gravity is.
Yeah, but atmospheric pressure is different, Chocolate.
Atmo means air.
Atmo what? Pressure?
It's an oxymoronic sphere-shaped air that SciManDan thinks that by begging the question of a sphere Earth that he hasn't proven, and suggesting that because of oxymoronic sphere-shaped air at pressure, arbitrarily not dispersing into a sky vacuum in violation of the second law of thermodynamics, gases go down with gravity. Other than gases don't go down.
They have no idea, but they know what pressure is, right?
But the force exerted on the walls of containment.
But we all know what contains pressure: a cover. That is the only way you can have air pressure, is being contained.
Correct.
Unless, of course, you've got a massive atmosphere around.
Sorry, a massive atmosphere. That's oxymoronic, begging the question, sphere-shaped air. Air is gases. Atmo means gases. That's what it means. So because of air spheres... No, we don't have any air spheres, Dan. Beyond your painting behind you. My God, he looks old.
Around a massive planet that literally causes pressure because of the
Literally. So if I just say you're literally a wanker, because literally you are a wanker, literally. No, just saying literally doesn't make it so, Dan. Where did I got that quote from? Oh, it's Dan's own words back to me in response. Yeah, just saying it doesn't make it so, right, Dan? Yeah? Where is that response? Has he deleted his own response?
Is he trying to say that the atmosphere is the container for the atmosphere? Because the guy was just talking
Yes.
about you need containment. How does he respond to that? Well, unless you have a massive atmosphere. Dude, that's the gas. What's wrong with you? Like, I don't... It's ridiculous.
weight of itself.
Sorry, weight?
It could be.
So the weight of the gases? Like the clouds and their weight? Oh, of course, my bad. We'll just grab some of those clouds and put them on scales because they're going down 9.8 meters per second, of course. Dan, you idiot. Clouds are not going down 9.8 meters per second. They're going up. Were you dropped on your head? Did you not pay attention in second grade? Do you not understand the directionality of gaseous water? That would be water vapour. It ain't going down 9.8 meters per second, clown. You are obviously not very well educated. Yeah? Not only do you measure Earth flat with elevation angles, we'll still just call it one. He also thinks that clouds are going down, go boom boom, go splash splash. Let me be the first to enlighten you, Dan, you utter brain-dead retard. The clouds are going up. It's water vapour. It comes from ground level and goes up. You utter moron.
of itself.
Doesn't happen any other way, guys. Okay? The radiation belt doesn't create anything like that.
Shout out to Unitox Femu. How to measure atmosphere is in comparing it to vacuum. Well, both of them, vacuum regardless, is also just a measure of pressure. So the two are the same thing. If you're going to say how much pressure have you got, or the lack thereof, they're one and the same thing. They're just measuring how much gas particles interact with walls of containment. That's what pressure is. It doesn't matter if you describe it for a vacuum or for the gas that you're breathing. They're just gases.
The radiation belt
Thank you for the
is
super
the
chat.
dome over the flat land. That's all. Weather. I thank you for subbing. I thank you for viewing my videos, and let me be a part of your life.
No, we thank you, Chris, for supplying us with endless videos of entertainment. Like
Really? Why didn't you put a link to him then, you absolute scumbag? So you're using his material. I don't know who he is. There's no link to him. You're a wanker. Yeah? You're a degenerate parasite. That's all you are, Dan. I don't care. I know and you know that Earth is measured flat. Don't you, Dan? You're measuring it with angles. Should you ever assert a distance to anything ever, be it horizontally or vertically, you will also require a horizontal plane of reference. Miles, kilometres, these are all flat Earth measurements. Heights, off surface level, these are all flat Earth measurements, Dan. Now, I don't know where my reply and your reply, Dan, where did it go? It seems to have vanished. Have you deleted that guy's reply? Because it was on camera earlier. We had it and now it seems to have vanished. What's going on? Where's Dan's reply to this? Gone. It's now completely vanished.
Nathan,
Yes.
you didn't read properly. It's why how massive atmosphere is comparing to the vacuum, because he said you don't need container if you have massive atmosphere. It is if it's big.
I
And
see.
now
You're
my
saying,
question
okay,
was-
I got you. In your response, you're saying,
Yeah.
all right, how massive is it compared to the vastness of heliocentric space derived from flat Earth elevation angles? Correct?
It's very small, yeah. It's like a dot in the space.
No, I mean, if we jump into the heliocentric paradigm where we beg the question of a sky vacuum to be in and compare to the atmospheric automatically assumed oxymoronic sphere-shaped air that's creating a down, go, boom, boom, go, splash, splash cloud scenario, then comparatively in his rhetoric, it's small. Meanwhile, to have gas pressure, you need to be under containment. That's how gas pressure is formed. To suggest that there's a area beyond the pressure that exists that is vastly different to the existing pressure that we're all breathing is an oxymoronic assertion that begs the question of sphere-shaped air. Air doesn't take sphere shapes to compare to the vastness of space, when the vastness of space itself is also a derivation of flat Earth elevation angle measurements to stars to create models and mathematics to then scale to say that it's a vast area of vacuum. All of it requires Earth be measured flat. With angles! Same ones Dan was talking about earlier. Thank you for the super chat, though, Sasha.
Yeah, okay.
Also, he shouldn't be using down. That's he should be saying going in, go splash, splash. If that you can make that make sense.
Well, that's what somebody replied to me in his comments. Someone was saying, oh no, well, how high we are with respect to, gave it in feet. And I responded saying, well, how high you are off sea level is a height off sea level. It's a surface level measurement, linear. That's a flat Earth prerequisite. My response, which I typed out whilst this live show was streaming, now doesn't appear anymore. And neither does Dan's response to me. It's just my comment in isolation with no response to Dan. Good job I filmed it, because it's vanished. Now, either I'm being mucked around by YouTube and it'll magically reappear again, but as far as I can ascertain, my comment and the response from Dan has now vanished. Very interesting.
Wow, that's pathetic.
In any event, please let SciManDan know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me to let you know that you measure Earth flat with elevation angles. This will be the first time that Dan has been informed that he measures Earth flat? Get chocolate. Get chocolate. I heard a and it was definitely you. I know that grunt.
Can you hear me?
Yes, just about.
So this horizontal plane that the observer is standing on, that's clearly defined by sources like Sustainable by Design and others who define the elevation angle. Where would they get this horizontal plane from if we're supposedly standing on a sphere?
You don't.
Where do you get them? You don't. So it doesn't really sound like SciManDan and all the anti-flatties have a problem with us. Seems like they have a problem with the source, the source material. So maybe SciManDan should try to contact Sustainable by Design and anybody else who defines an elevation angle and approach them and say, hey, guys, we're supposed to be on a sphere. What are you talking about, a horizontal plane that the observer is standing on? Where did you get that from, being that we're on a sphere?
Oh, well, I mean, if you square that circle with Sustainable by Design, you'll have to get onto radar tutorial next. Elevation angle is the angle between the horizontal plane and the line of sight measured in the vertical plane. Radar tutorial.
Uh-oh. So it sounds like maybe we should start a list.
So do we use radar? Is radar useful at all? It's more important that we listen to Dan, who was dropped on his frickin' head, than understand and appreciate that by definition, elevation angle measurements and radar go hand in hand and are a flat Earth prerequisite. Maybe it's just me not understanding radar tutorial's definition of an elevation angle. I got another 18 of them, should they go through the efforts to make sure that radar tutorial change that an angle's actually curving around a ball rather than being a measurement of a plane that we're standing on.
Exactly. You guys don't have problems with us. You guys got problems with all those guys. who supposedly...
No, it's not with those guys. It's not with those guys. It's with basic geometric concepts.
But before they can get to those basic geometric concepts, because, if they get to them, they probably would have been there already. Maybe they should talk to the direct guys who actually define these things for people in the world, who are actually measuring them and using them.
Well, Conspiracy Cats has taught them. So in IGCSE 2021 edition, I'm not sure if Conspiracy Cats was still teaching GCSEs, but as far as I am concerned, he's a teacher who has taught that standard. That's GCSE. And they also define an elevation angle. An angle of elevation is the angle from the lower object to the higher one, while an angle of depression is the angle from the higher object to the lower one. Both angles are measured with respect to the horizontal plane of the reference object. Just so we're all clear, this is the angle measurement with respect to Earth that we all use. It's fundamental to navigating, mapping, building, charting, surveying. It's absolutely critical that Earth is a flat plane for any of those processes to take place, ever. They've been taking place for centuries. They'll always be taking place with respect to Earth's surface. Earth is a flat plane. There's no ifs. There's no buts. There's no, well, that's because it's really big. Yeah, that's right. It's really big and measured flat. Always, by everyone, without exception. So given that that's the case, our job is done. It's not, I can go and look at the sun above the horizon and measure its angle for 24 hours. Therefore, flat earthers are all wrong. No. You're all measuring Earth flat always, without exception. So either get used to it, or what? Pour scorn on me as a flat earther and tell me I don't understand how frickin' clouds work because you didn't pay attention in second grade science. And you think that they go down? Down being with respect to a plane also. Gravity requires a plane of reference. See, idiots that support the cuckery and government cocksucking that is being a teacher or being SciManDan, yeah, leads you to the impression that when describing clouds going down with gravity, you fail to appreciate that you also need a horizontal plane of reference to describe the clouds going down, which they're not, with respect to. So down 9.8 metres per second is what the clouds are doing, says Dan, who didn't pay attention to the water cycle in school. What a thicko dropped on his head by his mother. Dumb as shit. Meanwhile, if we were to suggest that clouds are going down, go boom boom, go splash splash, because we too were dropped on our heads like Dan, who didn't pay attention in second grade science to the water cycle and how water vapour goes up. Not down, 9.8 metres per second, it comes from the ground and goes up. Unlike this retard, dropped on his head in his discussions in response to a flat earther when suggesting they go down. What a dum-dum. Please let Dan know, you thicko, were you dropped on your head when you suggested that the gases coming out of the fricking ground and going up, also only capable of description with respect to a horizontal plane, was actually them going down, also with respect to a horizontal plane? You don't have down on a ball. You have in and out only. But when you describe the height of the clouds off a flat plane, you'll delete the comment, won't you, Dan? Yeah, it's embarrassing when one of your commenters is telling me about the height of the cloud deck in feet off sea level. Good job I caught it, eh? In the pre-show, like recording what was going on with the comments before you deleted them, Dan. You abject coward. You deleted one of your own commenters' responses about measuring the height of the cloud deck off surface level. That's sea level. Level, Dan! Yeah, that's right. Every measurement of Earth always will be with respect to that surface level. Sea level in this instance. For the height of the clouds. Not how in they are or out they are. Obviously, you're not saying in, you're saying gas go down. With respect to a plane. Which is wrong. You don't understand the water cycle. You're a retard. Aren't you, Dan? That's why you're responding to this guy. Yeah? Because when you respond to me, you'll say things like, maybe it's because Nathan's a big fan of SciManDan. When responding to you and your reference frames are ruined, end quote, verbatim quote. Yeah, Dan, I'm not a big fan. I am pointing out that you measure Earth flat. And I'm directing my audience to make absolutely clear that this is number one. Dan measures Earth flat with angles. So please let him know, at Nathan Oakley 1980, sent me with a polite comment. Unlike these parasites, these scumbags, this wanker, Dan didn't put a link to the videographer who he's covering, because he's a wanker. A complete wanker. He gets propped up by the censors who simultaneously shove me to the bottoms of the lists. Past tense, now I just don't exist. Yeah, same as conspiracy cats. Total scum. Who won't put links to the videos they're covering. Me, I will, because I'm not total parasitical scum. I will help my opponent, in this case Dan, by sending you, my audience, to Dan, limited though I am. I'm heavily censored, unlike SciManDan, who doesn't put a link to anybody. He's just a parasite. When he parrots his nonsense about clouds going down with gravity, what a retard, dropped on his frickin' head, and I want him to know. Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me to let you know you're measuring Earth flat with elevation angles. In your response that you didn't put a link to the videographer for, you parasite, scumbag, retard who was dropped on his head when suggesting clouds go down with gravity. No, thicko. So please let him know. There's the link. You can see I'm not a parasite like SciManDan. Shout out to Never a Straight Answer. Book advance. Wish it could be more. Thank you. Oh, I see what you mean. You wish the super chat could be more. Oh, thank you so much. I'm touched. Really appreciate the support. Thank you very much indeed. Wasn't for people like you, the lights would not be on. It's just that simple. There's nothing else to cover in this video other than what the 2 bits I timestamped on it. There's very little else to cover in it. That's it. Still got 20 minutes left on the live show, though.
Well, pertaining to your up and down, they are now saying that we're retarded because you can absolutely get an elevation from a point on a sphere.
No, a point is not going to give you a line for the angle. It's two straight lines meeting at a vertex, not one straight line and one point. That's just a line.
Oh, wait a minute. So before it was, you could get an angle from a curved line. Now all of a sudden it's changed into
No.
Get it from a point?
Let's see it defined. Okay, no worries. According to what's the word? Wankers. It's a straight line and a point. Not according to the 20 citations I've already read two. One was from Radar Tutorial. Sorry, was it Wanker Tutorial? No, Radar Tutorial. Tutorial for Radar. Now, did they say it's just a point? Because globe-believing spastics need it to be? No. They made it clear we need a horizontal plane. We'll be standing on it. Now, you say that's a point? No, dipshit. That's not what Radar Tutorial said. Now, maybe you spastics can go and get us a definition of what a fucking elevation angle is. And show us where it says, oh, it's actually just to a globe point. Yeah. Yeah, do you want to go and get us one of them?
They didn't say that. They're not, Nathan, they made it clear. They're not talking about an elevation angle. They're just saying because we say you can't say up anymore or down anymore. They said we certainly can, because you can have up and down on the point of a sphere.
Sorry, no, you can't. You're having a description from sea level. It was described by one of Dan's commenters before he removed the comment. That is to say, your height is described off sea level, not off sea curve. Now, if you were dumbasses, spastics, that's globe believers, you want to go and find me a citation that says, now, actually, when we say height off sea curve, we mean it. Yeah, you're not going to find that. You spastics, look up what sea level is and then look up how heights are described. You're not going to win this one. Earth is measured flat without exception. Heights are no different to anything else that we measure with respect to Earth. They're off sea level, whether you like it or not.
That's why the little scumbags have to come out, do this, right? The self-proclaimed defenders of the globe, guardians of the globe, if you will. Because if people look into this, this is the type of thing they find. Oh, these guys describe the elevation angle as the horizontal plane. You need a horizontal plane to stand on to get this angle. And then you got these clowns saying, oh, well, you don't need that. You're just standing on a sphere. Or you get angles from a sphere or a curved line.
No, these are disinformation agents. They're just lying to you. Let's give you a different citation. We've had 3 so far. What about eeducation.psu.edu? These are educational sites. The solar elevation angle, as measured, is the angle between the central ray from the sun, open brackets, beam radiation, and a horizontal plane contacting the observer. End quote. So is that a point? Did I hear point? Did it say point? Horizontal plane contacting the observer. It's clear as crystal. Earth is measured flat. Go ahead, Wandek. Are you just hot micing one?
Sorry, I can't speak, mate.
No worries.
And the crazy part is these definitions all describe the observer as standing on the horizontal plane, not making it up with mathematics, not imagining it, standing on. That would be the ground. So again, where do you get a horizontal plane if you think you're standing on a sphere?
What makes you think it means the ground? Just because it says the
Well,
ground?
let's give you a different one. This one's from Tasadia.com. Explanation: altitude angle. Quote: altitude angle is the vertical angle between the projection of sun's rays on the horizontal plane of Earth's surface. End quote. Earth is a horizontal surface. That's how we measure it. It's how Dan measures it. It's how Toon measures it. It's how Conspiracy Cats measures it. Everyone measures Earth flat. Now, when you point this out to a ball-believing dickhead, they will tell you, oh, well, of course it's because it's so big. Agree with them. Say, yes, that's right. We measure Earth flat and Earth's really big.
Can I just make a correction there, please?
No.
Okay.
Obviously you can.
That means go, Brian.
The orientation of horizontal doesn't exist geometrically within their paradigm. They are talking about taking an elevation angle off of a tangent plane. But a tangent plane is not the surface of Earth. It's certainly not the surface of their globe. The orientation of horizontal is what the elevation angle is taken from. Now, I can take an angle to the top of a mountain from 3,000 feet above sea level. Let's say I could take an angle to the top of a high mountain 50 miles away and I'm 3,000 feet above sea level. But that horizontal plane that I'm creating is parallel to sea level, because mean sea level is our natural horizontal. That is the horizontal plane, right? The horizon, right, is the word horizontal is derived from the word horizon. That's where we get the orientation of horizontal from. All vertical heights above that will be 90 degrees to it, right? So what they're trying to claim, what they think they could, it's either they're trying to claim it's off a tangent plane or they're trying to completely remove the tangent plane and say they're just getting a zenith angle, right? Forgetting that you can't remove, even in their paradigm, you can't remove the tangent plane because you need 90 degrees. Even though they don't have a horizontal and a vertical, they can still create a 90 with a zenith from their center meeting a tangent plane at a point on the surface of the sphere. Geometrically, yeah, but you can't take an elevation angle off of that. And the zenith angle won't mean anything if you're trying to deny the 90. And the problem with zenith angles is they require the horizontal because they're off of a vertical. So even when they're trying to do that, that doesn't work. None of it works for them because the zenith angle is just read the opposite way from the elevation angle. And both of them require a horizontal plane that's either mean sea level, right, like more or less would be used in celestial navigation, or it's parallel to mean sea level, regardless of its length. So geometrically, they can't do any of this. Go on, Chuck.
So Brian, like even them saying tangent plane, isn't that contrary to their other point where they say that you can actually get a curve off an angle off a curved surface? Like,
but that's what they're saying when they say that.
How do you say that you can get an angle off a curved surface, but then you're asserting a tangent plane, regardless of whether a tangent is a beg of the question or not? Like, you're still saying you need a plane. So how can you say you need a plane and then also you could do it off a curve? Like, it's ridiculous.
But that's see, when they say I can get an elevation angle off a curved surface, as soon as all you do is ask them, go on then. And the first thing they'll do is they make a tangent plane, not realizing that they need the orientation of horizontal, not just a straight plane. Mathematically, they can create. No, you need the orientation of horizontal. Otherwise, because it's very, very simple, right? The GP of the celestial body, the mountain, whatever it is, the tower, whatever it is that you're taking an angle to, the GP of that thing, right, will be at mean sea level. And that means it has to be directly below the star, the top of the mountain, the building, whatever, right?
What's it stand for?
Directly below that geographical position, right? That has to be directly below that on the surface of Earth. That's where the GP is. Now, that won't happen, especially if you're talking about, even if you're just talking about an angular size measurement of something like Mount Everest from 100 miles away. The GP of Mount Everest will not be matching where they need it to match on the globe. It doesn't work. It can't work. That GP for Mount Everest has to be directly below, right, the tip of Mount Everest And it has that makes a vertical that's parallel to the vertical that if I was taking the angle that I'd have at my position. So those two zeniths have to be parallel verticals, and they both have a shared horizontal baseline, and that is mean sea level. It doesn't work. The GP, right, has to be directly below that 90-degree position that's at the GP. That's either at the GP of the celestial body or mountain or whatever, or it's directly above in a vertical horizontal height. This is we're talking about referencing the Earth. We're not talking about referencing a tangent plane that's somewhere off out in heliocentric space. So geometrically, none of this can happen. Go on, John.
Well, still though, a zenith is by necessity measured as an elevation angle of 90 degrees. Without 90 degrees, you don't get a zenith.
No, I don't. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I'm saying what they would call a zenith would be a line coming from their center, the center of the sphere, outward through the surface of the sphere, meeting a tangent plane. So they think then, because they have a mathematical 90, they think, Bob's your uncle. No, that zenith will not be a vertical, right? That they're trying to call a zenith. Within their paradigm, that will not be a vertical, and the tangent plane will not be a horizontal. And the tangent plane will have no reference to the surface of the Earth. They're claiming they can't do it without the orientations of horizontal and vertical, right? And referencing the surface of Earth. And they can't do any of those three things. Need those three requirements. They can't. They don't have them. It's over. They can't do it geometrically.
Right, but the reference requires a measurement that you. The measurement requires a reference. You have to be able to experience what you're referencing. How do you reference the center of Earth?
But you can't. You're not doing any of that. You're literally trying to reference a GP position that's directly below the celestial body or top of the mountain at a distance. That's what you're actually referencing. Those points will not match where those points would have to be on the surface of the sphere. Because not only do they need what they need with the celestial body, for instance, they need to move that down to their tangent plane to get it a line from their center. Like I've shown all this geometrically, none of it matches reality. They can't match reality. They can only mathematically basically come up with geometric excuses that stand outside the geometry that's needed for the measurements. It doesn't work. They don't have what they need. They don't have the GP points directly vertically below the celestial body or tip of the mountain or tower. They don't have those. They don't have the horizontal plane. They don't have the vertical. Any of the verticals, they don't have them. In reality, all horizontal planes must be parallel to each other, and all of them must be parallel to the plane of the horizon, and all verticals must be parallel to each other. And the GP positions must be found on the surface of Earth. They don't have that. Right? We reference a GP position. If I've taken a 45-degree angle to a celestial body, that means its GP position is from the point that mean sea level directly below me. It's the GP position of that celestial body. It's 2,700 nautical miles in a horizontal. So my GP and the GP of the celestial body are on the same horizontal plane, the shared horizontal plane. That can't happen on their globe. It's just none of this works geometrically. It doesn't work.
Again,
they don't have it.
Again. Yeah, I agree completely. So when are we going to have like a special live stream where these guys, these anti-flatties, like SciManDan, I like that, Nathan, and all these clowns will go through these same definitions and show us all how this horizontal plane that the observer is supposedly standing on actually means that it's a spherical surface. Like when are they going to do that?
That's what Brian just spent 10 minutes explaining. Geometrically, it doesn't add up. Yeah. You can't extrapolate. It's a bit like the saying Einstein and Newton are compatible. You're like, no. They're in different geometries. And likewise, if you're going to describe axiomatically the acquisition and utilization of a flat plane with respect to a sphere, there isn't one. Just doesn't exist.
Well, it just answers what Chocolate said, and to add on to what Nathan just said.
Never. They won't ever.
Yeah, they can't. They've tried to reference it, and they try and call whatever, what they would call a zenith from the center of the globe, they try to call that a vertical and the tangent plane a horizontal. But the problem with that is that's back to every point between, let's just say, every point along the surface of the sphere, from that point they stand on, it will be the creation of a whole new tangent plane. So all of those tangent planes are supposed to be all horizontals that are all at different orientations to each other. And all of that nonsense, right, is completely debunked by the GP point. Because the GP point has to be, right, referencing a point directly below it. That means it's a point either directly on the horizontal plane that I'm measuring off, or it's directly below that horizontal plane, directly in a vertical, not into some point on a sphere, directly below. So if I'm taking an angle to Mount Everest and I'm doing an angular size measurement of it, then the angular size measurement itself completely destroys them for 2 or 3 epic reasons. But just using the GP of my GP from where I stand and the GP of Mount Everest, both of them, if I'm 100 miles away, they must be on the same horizontal plane of reference. That means, and their GPs is geographical position. That means they're points on the surface of Earth. That means that those 2 points, 100 miles in distance from each other, are on the same horizontal plane, and that horizontal plane is mean sea level, which is the Earth. Our horizontal plane, our average horizontal plane throughout the whole world is sea level. It's mean sea level technically.
Are you trying to say
that's the point?
You're trying to say sea level's level?
Well, that's the thing about it, right? Mean sea level is a horizontal. Go on, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But it all comes back to the geometry, but not just the geometry. It's what you're referencing. You're referencing a GP point, a GP position. The extra proof of this, because it brought up the angular size measurement of Mount Everest. Let's say Mount Everest is like 5.5 miles high, and I'm standing 1 mile right above a point on Earth, right? And I'm taking an angular size of Mount Everest 120 miles, let's say, right? The angle I get, right, I must subtract my 1 mile of elevation off of the full height of Mount Everest. So I'm taking an angle, and that angle must match 4.5 miles. So because I know my distance from Mount Everest, right, which would be in a straight horizontal, because I know that, then I know that my angle will directly equate to the remainder of the full height of Mount Everest, above the plane of reference I stand upon. And that angular size measurement will always match. Now, if the Earth was a globe of radius 3.959 miles, it will never match, because Mount Everest's GP and the zenith coming up from that GP will be diverging from where I stand, from the zenith above my head, right? Because I'm eating at the center of the globe. And that means there will be a lean of Mount Everest away. And when you show it geometrically, I won't get the angle I get. Right, that won't mean that because they don't have perspective or angular sizes on the globe anyway. But hypothetically, even if they do it geometrically, just show it in GeoGebra or CAD or something, the angle you get will not match 4.5 miles if I'm standing 1 mile above the mean sea level. It won't match. None of it will match. It's all wrong. None of it works. The Earth the Earth is not a globe. The Earth is flat. There's no way out of it for them. Geometrically, they can't do this. Sorry, I got a bit riled up because I've had to go through so much of this in videos, and I deal with so many of these guys, and it's the same old rhetoric. No matter how much you correct them, some idiot will still come out with some video, and you won't even know about, and they're trying to take an angle off of a vertical that they're trying to a vertical they don't have.
I don't blame you for the frustration, Brian, because again, that's why I keep pointing it out. Like, you guys don't have a problem with us. You guys got a problem with reality. You might want to go check out the people that define things like elevation angles, things that people use to measure Earth, right? It's not us you have a problem with, because they're saying the same thing we are. We're just going by reality. You're standing on a horizontal plane. If you want to say that they're saying it's also too big to measure the curve, well, then you're also saying they're measuring it flat, which is our whole point.
Every time they've said Earth's just so big, we have to measure it flat. They're conceding to this problem. The cognitive dissonance has to lean on in favor of the measurements when they say that. They can't deny the measurements. So, oh yeah. I mean, in this instance, we'll measure a flat, but that's fine. It's really big. A really big ball that we're measuring flat because it's a really big ball. So that's okay. Think of every time that you've told somebody that if you're a baller. It's not okay. It's just a flat Earth measurement.
That's why I'm not going to stop harking on this. Because again, been here 10 years and I've heard that many times, right? And yeah, in years past we said, well, but no, it's not supposed to be flat. You should have this curve right here, right? No more. Your concession stands. Thank you very much. Welcome to Flat Earth.
Yeah. Okay, so big, we measure it flat. There's nothing ball-shaped in that. It's an apology. All right, well, it's still ball-shaped even though we measure it flat because it's really big. No, we just measure it flat. Really big has nothing to do with it. You mean no matter how big it gets in terms of the scale and size of that measurement, it's always flat? Yeah, we know. It's always measured flat. That's right.
Yep. We'll take it.
Well, it's just a fact. Those are the facts in the matter, aren't they? And Brian's saying when you try and axiomatically tie a flat Earth measurement, in this case of elevation angle, to a curved surface, you said it at the start of this, Chocolate, does not compute is the answer.
This object is not a line. Access denied.
He's referring, is it Rob Durham that did that? Rob Durham did a video where he's got a CAD program up and he's just showing, can I get a line from this curve? And the computer program just says no. Because what you're trying to get an angle from is a curve. Angles aren't formed with curves. It's just that simple. That's why all the definitions of elevation angles define them as what they are. Straight lines, in this case, with respect to the surface of the plane we measure. When we talk about Earth being measured, it's a plane. Like I say, you can tell us till you're blue in the face, that's only because it's really big. And you can believe that if you want to, but it is just your belief in an Earth that's so big, we measure it flat.
A few minutes ago, Nathan, you said something was, you can't get that measurement on the globe, it's a flat Earth measurement. No, it's just a measurement of Earth that shows the Earth to have a horizontal plane of reference throughout the whole lot of it. That's all it does. You don't even have to say it's a flat Earth, because then it's like a kind of a false dichotomy situation. Even though it's not really. But the point I'm making is you're putting up these two charts. No, you don't have to. Just measurements of the Earth show the Earth to be a horizontal plane of reference with vertical heights and drops above and below that horizontal plane throughout its entirety.
Well,
That's
we wouldn't have to refer to these measurements as flat Earth measurements if we didn't have these people referring to these flat Earth measurements as ball Earth measurements. Right? If we didn't have to go through that little do-si-do, then we just say measurements and get on with our day, right? But then you got clowns like SciManDan sitting in front of their computer trying to just read off mainstream paradigm nonsense to us, right? Telling us that horizontal planes are actually freaking spheres. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I understand that point. The only reason it's being said is because, like, nobody, as I've said in the past, nobody ever started saying the Earth was flat until someone started claiming it was a globe, right? That's fair. That's fair. But the point I'm making is, we just measure the Earth, and we reference the Earth, and every way we measure, reference, navigate, aviate, whatever, right? Survey the Earth shows that it's a horizontal plane of reference, with vertical heights above and drops below that horizontal plane. Like, that's what it is. Like, we're not even trying to we're not like trying to claim that. That's just a fact. It just is. That's just what it is. And it just doesn't fit their paradigm. That's really the problem, isn't it? It's not your fault. Nathan, it's not your fault it doesn't fit their paradigm. That's not your fault. You're not responsible for
that. You're right, and I should relax a bit more, because you're right. This is not our problem. I'm warming to this more and more, Brian. I'm glad you've said that. Yeah, it's not our problem.
That's what I'm saying.
The fact that Earth measurements don't match, that's your problem. Sorry, Chocolate.
Sorry. No, that backs up my point. This is not our problem. This is their problem. You guys got to go deal with that shit. We're saying the same thing all these sources are saying. You measure elevation angles off a horizontal plane. It's very simple. You guys want to magically change that into, no, we're actually standing on a sphere, getting these same angles, which you can't get from this supposedly curved surface that you got, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, my only point with it, Nathan, is that if we keep on saying, I won't point the finger just at you, because that would be unfair, because we're all doing it at times, right? But I understand you're running a show, so maybe it's more, the more fingers are pointed at you, right, for things that are said on the show. But my point is, it's not that you're wrong, right, straight out wrong what you're saying. It's that when we keep on saying, that's a flat out measurement, that's a flat out measurement, it's like, that's the same as saying, it's like them saying, "'Tis a globe, it's a globe, it's a globe." It's like one is a chant versus the other chant. We don't need to, like, we're just referencing what happens in reality. It matches what we say it matches because it just does. It's not even that it matches, it shows rather than it just shows, right? What we have been stating for since God knows how long. It just doesn't match their paradigm. And that's not our fault. But they want it to be our fault.
Yeah, I totally agree. They want it to be out. They want to project their issue with it not matching reality, their globe that is, onto us, like it's our fault. It's a good way of putting it.
They're basically saying that
not my fault.
The same way Fight the Tight Shirt had a big problem with George Booster coming out saying that gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. And then, I don't know, somehow he was able to go get George Booster and have a whole interview with him, right? Where he basically reiterated the same damn thing. Why don't the other guys do the same thing with these guys that define elevation angles? Go get somebody from Sustainable by Design and have a nice little interview with him so he can tell you how the horizontal plane that the observer is standing on is actually a sphere. Please, I mean, we would love that. I'm sure everyone would love that, right? To clear that up, to make sure everything's on point, nice and clean, right? Dot the I's, cross the T's.
The problem is, Chocolate.
Am I off on that?
I think you are a little bit. Well, why I'm saying that is what will happen is these people are probably ballers as well. So you'll have pressure from the Ruhifs and all that on their side, from this arena. You'll have pressure from them, right? The SciManDans and all the rest of it, right? Trying to get them to say it's a horizontal plane, but it's a horizontal tangent plane. They'll have them change it to horizontal tangent plane or something like that.
I want that person sign.
Yeah, I understand. You might be. I know you're not green to that. I get it. I'm just saying that's what they'll do because Charles Glover Matt has already claimed, and I'm sure he has since then because he's going to go back a couple of years ago, that he was going to be contacting GeoGebra and getting them to make it so you can get an elevation angle off a curved surface. Or something like that. I didn't
fundamentally. Okay, so what we're saying has made a baller want to fundamentally change how geometry works. You think he can do that?
Yeah, let him try, or let him worm, or let him do the same thing that George Booster did when he was having his little interview with Fight the Tight Shirt, right? That he knows what he's saying is not what the guy who's interviewing wants to hear, but he has to say that because he's got to stand on the business, right? So he'll do the air quotes and say, it's not really a force, but you can think of it as a force, right? Things like that. Yeah. I want to see the same thing with the elevation angles. Same thing.
Well, I would love to see how you fundamentally change geometry. It ain't gonna happen.
Well, something gotta happen.
Yeah, exactly, Chocolate. Something's gotta happen. And the thing is that, John, the ballers have put pressure on so many different websites and different people to change things around, change citations, change references around over the past few years since past 10 years, basically, or 11 actually, for Betty, that I wouldn't put it past them to get GeoGebra to try and change geometry. Because, because heliocentrism goes that deep. They'll forego anything. I mean, people who are staunch Christians their whole life will suddenly go against Christianity in place of heliocentrism. Now, that doesn't mean they won't end up looking GeoGebra or CAD or something wouldn't end up looking stupid if they did it, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't do it. Look at that guy, Professor Wolf. Is that it? Is that his name? He changed the citation he had because QE was using it, and he was contacted by the ballers, right? And he changed it around, and he got into a load of trouble because loads of people had used that citation in their theses or whatever. Loads of people from the university, and he had to change it back. Yeah, exactly, Chocolate. I know.
You remember years ago when the gravity thing was still whatever, and I think it was before the whole Mooser fight the tightrope thing. That when Rumpus was literally live on one of their little hangouts, and he said blatantly out loud, like, we need to go to these physicists and the academics, like, the teachers, and tell them to stop saying that gravity is a force, or it's not a force. We need to stop them from doing that. We need to change that. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was years ago, but yeah, this is the type of thing you're talking about.
I remember that.
Yeah, so you want to go ahead and change citations and move things around because those pesky flat earthers are asking questions and pointing things out? No, we're just dealing with reality. And now it seems like you want to change reality around. So I want to see if the same thing can happen with this. That's it.
You can't do it.
Well,
how is a computer going to acquire an angle if it curves a line?
Exactly. But look, they'll do it if they're programmed to do it, but that'll come back to haunt them.
No. I mean, no, they can't do it. It's impossible. You won't be able to get an angle. It just won't happen.
What they'll try and create an automatic tangent without you asking them or something. They'll try and do some nonsense, John. That's what I have no doubt about it. They'll try and do some kind of nonsense because that's what these people bloody do. What was I going to say? Let's be honest, right? For years and years and years, in social media everywhere, it's always been flat earthers are the problem. Flat earthers are the problem. Flat earthers are the problem. No, flat earthers aren't the problem. Regardless of whether they say something good or say something stupid, they're not the problem. The problem is reality, and it's not matching their paradigm. That's the problem. We're not responsible for that. We're just pointing it out. They're trying to kill the messenger all the time. Like, there's no point in me attacking the postman because I don't like the letter he's giving me. Sorry?
I don't really agree with that. The reality is fine. Reality is reality. That reality is not the problem. The problem is their perception of reality and how they try to portray it to others. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, their issue. Yeah, but see, my point is that they're trying to make it out as, when I say they, it's not about the ballers. They're trying to make it out as if we're the issue. We're not the issue. For them, it's not us. It's reality and the things we're pointing out is the issue. It's like that video where the father is there trying to tell his son or little daughter or whatever that, look, the rocket is going out into space, and he or she is saying, but it's going down, Daddy. No, it's going off up. No, it's going down. Like, the child was literally referencing exactly what the rocket was doing, which was taking an arc downward into the ocean, more or less. And the father didn't want to deal with it. Was the problem the child, or was the problem that the father didn't want to address what was actually happening in front of his eyes? The problem was he didn't want to address what was happening. Simple as.
I tell you what, if somebody tried to say I was chanting because somebody stole my dang lawnmower, and was mowing their yard with it, and I was saying that's my lawnmower, I'd punch him in the nose, I think.
Yep. Sounds like a punch in the nose would be deemed necessary. Sure.
But that's what it all boils down to, isn't it? They're using our stuff. I noticed that video by one of the Hangouts that we did was titled that recently, like in the last few months. And that's what it boils down to. They want to use flat Earth measurements.
And then claim a globe.
How do you deal with a baller who says he only needs an inch of a straight line to acquire an angle?
Well, the length, if you talk about an elevation angle, the adjacent of that elevation angle can be no longer than 1 inch.
Right. It doesn't matter whether it's an inch or a mile. A segment of a horizontal plane is still a horizontal plane.
Yeah, I was gonna say it still sounds like they need a straight line, even if it's just an inch, as they claim.
Yeah, but that question, or a baller saying that, I should say, that statement means that the baller is trying to deny the measurement itself. But if you're taking an elevation angle and you're saying you're taking it off of a horizontal 1 inch, for a actually don't have horizontal on globe, so saying horizontal ends it straight away. But if you're saying that the horizontal you're using is 1 inch in length, then that means your elevation angle can only have an adjacent of 1 inch, because you're measuring a vertical height above the horizontal adjacent. That's what you're measuring. They want to deny the measurement of the opposite when it comes to a celestial body, and they're going to have to start denying it when it comes to everything. They're trying to remove. It's very simple. They're trying to claim, right, a triangle with two sides and one angle, one internal angle, and it doesn't even have an internal because it only has two sides.
They don't have one.
They can say it's internal, but you know what I mean. They're trying to claim a two-sided triangle. That's what they're trying to claim. Two-sided triangle with one internal angle. That's what the sum of their triangle can be no more than 90 degrees. And do you know what I mean? That's basically what they're saying.
Correct.
If you go into it geometrically, that's what they're saying.
But they don't have one angle to argue about three angles and a line opposite the point you're making. They don't have an angle at all.
They don't have anything.
Yeah. They come up with the strangest ideas and with the most superfluous arguments. But then they come with I just need an inch. So that's when my arguments really fail. Being a flat earther, to be honest.
Well, no, you'll need a flat Earth for that inch. It's linear.
Yeah, you need to watch my videos. Your arguments don't fail. It's that you're under the impression they fail. They haven't failed at all. You just allowed, you just haven't geometrically held them to their claim. You can't have an elevation angle without a 90 degrees at the end of that straight line. So that means if they're claiming they only need an inch long of a straight line, but they can't claim a horizontal that orientation doesn't exist and can't exist on a globe. Within their paradigm, it can't exist. Horizontal or vertical can't exist. Now, they can say that they're going to have a 1 inch long straight line, which will only be a tangent in their paradigm. They still have to put a 90-degree angle at the end of that 1 inch straight line. That means that the elevation angle they're measuring can be no longer, its adjacent can be no longer than 1 inch. No, they can't use that with a celestial body or anything else, because what they're doing is they're trying to deny the use of the adjacent and the opposite. Yet it's the opposite is what's being measured off of the adjacent. They're trying to deny the horizontal adjacent and the vertical opposite that you're actually measuring. You're literally measuring the opposite, the vertical, above that horizontal adjacent. And they're trying to deny those two things. They're trying to have an elevation angle that just has a hypotenuse.
Yeah, I got
We're talking about straight lines, right? whether it segments down to an inch, expand it to a mile, or you cover the equatorial plane with it. A segment of a horizontal is still a horizontal. All I need is an inch. You still need a flat earth for that.
Where would the inch even be? Is the inch at the GP? Well, then you wouldn't be able to measure it from wherever you are, or is the inch at your feet? Well, you're not going to measure 90 from where you are, because if the inch is at your feet, well, then you don't have it at the GP. So it's one or the other. So that's a pretty silly thing to say as far as I'm concerned. But hey, they got to try, man. Imagine the pain of trying to convince everyone a flat plane is actually a sphere, right?
Well, by admitting that all they need is an inch is to say is all they need is a flat plane.
A little bit of flat, that's all I need.
Yeah, and I know, but now I understand, because you do need the 90-degree angle to actually measure the height or the elevation itself. Of course, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
Right,
and that 90 degree, the
curve.
baseline of that 90 degree, you must be basically measuring off of that baseline. So that has to be stretched all the way to you, regardless of the length. So if it's 2,700 nautical miles or if it's 2,700 inches, it makes no difference. It's a hard,
Yeah,
it must be
and then
referenced in the average.
Yeah, and if they say 1 inch, that is all they need, then that's the elevation on that 90-degree angle of that 1 inch. That's the elevation that you'll be able to measure, only that 1 inch. Yeah, no, I get it. Absolutely. That makes sense.
Well, it means that they can't measure an elevation angle, then it would be only, their elevation angle would be 89 point blah, 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 blah degrees.
No,
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't. No, it would not be an angle. It's a straight line. At no point is a curve a straight line.
Yeah, but they're claiming that they're going to be using a 1 inch long straight line to take an angle off.
Yes.
One point being is that they can't do that. Completely ends them when they say that, because they're denying the elevation angle assessed. They're denying
John, please,
they
can you
need
mute?
horizontal and vertical. They don't have it.
A segment of a curve is a curve. A segment of a line is a line. If you don't have a line, you don't have an angle. All you have is a curve. You don't have an angle. It doesn't matter how much you segment it. It will just isn't that.
Well, they don't have a 1 inch straight line on the surface of the sphere. That has to be a tangent plane, no matter what. Sorry, no matter what way they twist it or turn it, they're still claiming a tangent plane. This 1 inch thing they're talking about is not the surface of that sphere.
This is that straight line they're trying to measure while sitting on a rocking horse, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
At what point do you start measuring that line? Well, yeah, somewhere along.
I think that's John's
They're
point.
trying to say to you, and you saying your argument kind of falls apart at that. All I need is a segment of the horizontal plane 1 inch long.
So all you need is be 1 inch away from the GP measure the same. Okay.
I think you're all missing John's point. Everyone just go on mute while John speaks, so we don't need horrendous audio. Just John. Just make your point again, John, because everyone's missing it seems.
Yes. For it to be a 1 inch segment of a horizontal line, it must be a horizontal line. If it's a 1 inch segment of curve, it's not an angle.
Nobody's missing
Yeah,
that.
but I'm not missing that point.
I said that, that was the first thing I said when the guy said that they asked you for an inch of a straight line. Well, it sounds like you still need a straight line.
Quick shout out to Ashley for thank you for extending the show, Nathan. Linear show. Thank you for the super chat. But I am actually going round
as
out.
soon as you mention measuring elevation angle, they're not measuring curvature for a start.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm going to round out on that note. So with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed. Let SciManDan know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, because I'm not a scumbag and I do share the links to videos I cover. So please let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. First time you measure Earth flat with elevation angles, Dad. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video. Be here or be sphere for QE Live on the Quantum Eraser YouTube channel, 6 PM UK, 1 PM Central Standard.